like I was never the biggest Republican or the biggest Democrat. I feel like I was always, I mean, I guess I voted Democrat, had voted Democrat most of my life, you know, but I want there to be more parties than there are. You know, I just want things to be real, or I just want to know what's really going on. I just don't like being like taken advantage of. That's the thing I don't like. And so, yeah, I think that's my biggest curiosity, you know, usually is trying to get things to be fair. And yeah, just to have a voice if I'm right or wrong. You know, I tried to speak up for what I felt like seemed like tried to be the best, you know, or whatever I thought was the best. But then sometimes you're also so deceived, you don't know. And that's one thing that's kind of fascinating about life. And that's one thing that I think does get me up these days. It's like, what a tricky fucking little Game of Thrones we're in, right? Yep. And everybody should feel that way. And you get up and you see, where are they tricking you? Who's tricking me? Who's fucking me? Who am I fucking? You know what I'm saying?
And it's crazy. And it's one of these weird things, right? Because it's like someone will, you know, it's like someone online who you don't even know. You could see a video and someone's saying something really compelling and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you're like, oh yeah, but people are liars. Yeah. So like this guy might be lying to me, or the guy he's talking to about might be lying to me. And you know, there are things like this. It's like, you know, part of the thing when the people on CNN or whatever, they'll be like, there's misinformation on the internet. Like they are right. There isn't misinformation on the internet. Did you see the thing with the Hollywood, sign on fire
was burning?
It was going super viral. Like everyone thought,
and
oh,
it
the
wasn't?
Hollywood sign. No, it's just a doctored, you know, AI image or whatever.
Yeah, I heard it burned up.
There are people who will lie to you, but then at the same time, the person on CNN who's like, oh, all these guys are lying to you. You're like, yeah, but you're lying to me too, man. Yeah. So that's the weird thing navigating this world. There's just like all this information and so much of it's bullshit.
That's a dirty fucking Halloween. And your life is at stake. And that's what that's what fucking puts something on the line, you know?
Yeah.
And that is something that's kind of inspiring, man. Yeah, if you don't speak up and you don't try to say, then it's just like, that's what you got to do, man. Use your fucking voice. You know what I'm saying? Use your voice.
Are you going to the inauguration?
I think I'm going to go because, first of all, I got excited to go. I got invited to go, and then I never will get to go again. Are you going?
Same. Yeah. Just because I got invited, and it's just kind of like, how could you not go? I mean, it's just, it's like, it's American history. And it's also, this was such a big election too. It feels like such a seismic shift. And I got invited and I'm just like, come on. I mean, I don't know. I can't not, I'm too much of a history nerd to not be like,
yeah, you have to go
for that. Yeah.
And I love that you always seem to have like this open-ended, like you're not attached. It feels like you don't really attach yourself to, you don't get overly attached.
Well, I try to be attached to principles, you know, and not be attached to politicians. Yeah. So, you know, it's like I supported Trump in this last election just because I thought Kamala Harris I thought she was such an insult to all of us, you know, like it was like, come on, you can't actually do this. And to not have a primary and then just hand select her. And then all the lying about Biden, all the going around with
the lying about Biden was crazy.
I just couldn't stand that. So I supported Trump. But as soon as Trump starts doing something I think is wrong, I'll be the first one to be like, yeah, dude, he's fucking up. Oh, yeah. I think that's the way everyone should be. I think people are way. I'm also glad for that election season's over. I hate when people get so like dug in, just staying in a hotel every night, basically. Yeah, I guess if you do that for a year, you could rack up a lot of money.
Down in the Florida.
I went to Key West for supposed to be 10 days.
During the pandemic.
Yeah, and I was there a year and a half.
I heard that you ran up a bill at the hotel there that was like astronomical.
It was insane. I stayed at a resort on the beach for a year and a half.
And it cost, I heard, $1 million.
I don't think it was $1 million, but it was a lot of money.
If you tipped, did you tip?
I always tip.
What do you think it was? When you say a lot of money, how much was it?
I mean, it was definitely probably $500,000 for sure.
But I feel like it was more than that.
It might have been. I kind of don't want to know.
Yep. See, and that's our Federal Reserve right there.
Well, it's true.
And that's how our Federal Reserve operates.
Done that for $50,000 on my grandpa's dollar. It allows the government to spend as much money as they want to because they can print as much money as they want to, while it destroys the currency of the rest of us. And the worst thing about the Federal Reserve, from my perspective, is that it lets the government get away with just really evil things that they would never be able to get away with if they couldn't print all the money to. So, you know, you could do lockdowns and then just hand out checks because you can print the money. But if you couldn't hand out the checks, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with lockdowns. You could fight a war in Afghanistan for 20 years. Now, if you had to tax people for that war, if you had to say, okay, listen, we want to fight a war in Afghanistan, so every quarter we're going to come to you for another, 10% of your income, there'd be massive pressure from people to end the war.
Right.
But since they just print the money, they're able to keep it going for 20 years.
Wow.
And it also does a lot to like distort markets and just mess everything up because they pump money into markets where there's no real demand for there to be growth there. It's a huge scheme. It's privately owned. We don't even have real information on it. There's never been a full audit of the Federal Reserve. Wow. There was Ron Paul was the only one in Congress who was really pushing for an audit. I think Thomas Massey also was. But never got it done.
The federal government sets the salaries of the board's 7 members, 7 of the board's 7 governors, and it receives all the system's annual profits after dividends on member banks' capital investments are paid. The Federal Reserve earned a net income of $100.2 billion in 2015 and
for every
transferred
$35 we printed, we had to put away an ounce of gold. Okay, so this
into
was
Fort Knox.
Yeah, I think that's where it was supposed to be caught. Also, has not been audited, but I think that's where it was supposed to be.
That bitch is empty, I'm sure,
dude. It's, I think, long called America's bluff. And they went, you guys are spending a whole lot of money. I'm thinking we'll take our gold. Like, we got all these dollars, we'd like to convert them into gold. So they called America's bluff, and Richard Nixon was like, nah. And so the way he spun it, it was just a giant default.
Slick Rick.
It was just a huge default to the world. Sure. Like, we're just not. No, but the way he spun it's healthy and normal and natural that there should be a movement in America that's concerned with America.
Oh yeah, well you have people too who lost their grandfathers, who lost their siblings, who lost their great grandfathers to helping liberate other groups and helping around the world, helping be those military presence around the world, and who served, and they thought that meant something, that there was some value, that it meant something, that the American flag hadn't just been pitted by hadn't just been divided as if it was a conservative emblem. That's crazy to think that somebody got fucking half of America.
Retelling of history.
Yes.
For Zuckerberg to go, so the government was saying we have to censor these things that are true. And we were like, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, what really happened is the government said you're going to censor these things that are true, and he said, yes, sir, and did it for 8 fucking years, okay? And then at the end of these 8 years, when Trump wins a dominant victory, and now the guy who you kicked off of Facebook is now president again, and now the whole culture's turned against you, and he's threatening to, look into you.
He's coming.
And there's a lot of, pretty quasi-illegal stuff that was done. So now you said, okay, we're not going to do this again. While Joe Biden is literally on his hands and knees pooping his pants on the way out with terrible numbers, and Donald Trump's coming in popular again. So, okay, yes. So for him to spin that as the government said we should do this thing and we said, no, that's ridiculous. Okay, that's not exactly what happened. As a private independent company, they print the money and then lend it to us. So they charge us for using dollars at all. They make money off the fact that we use our own currency that they're just given the right to print out of thin air.
So they're a bank.
In effect, print out of thin air. I mean, most of it's done on computers these days. But so what they do is it was created by a bunch of powerful bankers. There's a great book on this called The Creature from Jekyll Island that really goes through the whole history of it. But
let's order that book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, it's a good one by G. Edward Griffin.
Okay.